Hi, I'm Stephen Vizinczey, and I'm going to talk about Mark Twain, in more particularly about his book, Pudd'nhead Wilson. Mark Twain is the greatest American writer, but he could be best compared not to other American writers, but our own Jonathan Swift and the French Voltaire. He was one of the few writers on whom the injustice of the world burned more deeply than in any other writer in world literature. And this is why his immense significance. If you want to know about injustice and you really feel injustice, then he is your writer. He was born in Missouri in 1835, at a time when America was still a slave society. Missouri, the slaves were actually lived a life not all that different from free house servants and agricultural laborers. The difference was that if they displeased their masters, then they could be sold to the South, where slaves were treated worse than animals, and none of them lived long. All the cruelties all the cruel stories we hear is really from the Deep South. The greatest importance about Mark Twain that he grew up in a little town which was a slave society, but also what you could call the Bible Belt. When Mark Twain was young, he, with the other children, used to go to visit an old white-haired Negro woman who was so old that he knew Moses personally. So these were people for whom the Bible was such a living reality that you knew people who knew Moses. So it all happened. So the very idea that human beings are the children are God, they're God's children, and equal in the eyes of God, and the slave reality that they were less important and less worthwhile than animals was the basic conflict which obsessed Mark Twain all his life. These were all childhood experiences, but really they determined his future life and future writing. And all his novels are dealing with the difference between who you are actually and what position you were born to. Even in the Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court, the legendary King Arthur is captured and for a while treated like a slave. And in the Prince and the Pauper, the future English king, the Henry VIII's son, is by haphazard chances treated as a pauper, and these kind of exchange of identities, social identities, makes you realize that how absurd slavery and the oppression people can feel society have. So this is the most important thing about him. Mark Twain's father was a failed lawyer, and his Pudd'nhead Wilson is in a way a tribute to his father, because Pudd'nhead Wilson is a lawyer. And he uses for first time before it was officially accepted. It was a newfangled thing, you know. Nobody knew whether it would work or whether it is really true or not. That he identified people by their fingerprints. So this is also the first fingerprints novel, and he and it is through the fingerprints that he identifies the hero as a. I didn't say that the story is that Roxanne, the housemaid, is so frightened that her son is going to be sold to slavery to the Deep South, that he exchanges her own son to the son of the master. They're both very young. They born at the same time. So he thinks, and they are both white color. The Roxanne son also is light colored. So he thinks that the change works. So the Negro kid grows up as a free white man and behaves as obnoxiously, as cruelly as most of the people who thought they were superior to the slaves behaved, while the poor white kid who was made a slave grows up as a stupid Negro because they were treated that way, and he wasn't expected to think, and so he sunk into really with a very primitive life, non-thinking life, and the true Negro boy who grows up as a free white man is so cruel that he sells his own mother down the river to slavery, and murders his supposed father to get money because he gambles and is full with the vices of the slave-owning classes. And finally, he's identified to Pudd'nhead Wilson's by his fingertips. And he's Pudd'nhead Wilson, incidentally, because when he's very annoyed by a dog which is always barking, then he says, I would like to cut off half of this dog's head. And nobody explains, nobody understands in Hannibal, nobody understands the joke that if you cut half the head of the dog is dead. And this was a witty remark which nobody could understand, and that's why he earned for himself the name Pudd'nhead Wilson. Now, the end is also very good because the boy who grows up as a free white man, found out that he's a murderer, and so he's condemned to be hanged. But the editors of his supposed father, the creditors, go to the governor and say, you can't sell his own property, and it should be recover some for losses from this property. So when the governor explained to the case, as soon as the governor understood the case, he pardoned Tom at once, and the creditors could then sold him down the river. The implication is that the slavery would be worse than in the South is worse than hanging, which is in fact was. Anyway, this is a novel you should read if you are interested. The difference what people really are, as opposed to what their social position is, and the difference between people's social position and their real character. And about this, you can have no better writer than Mark Twain.